welcome to this edition of The List on UWW-TV. I'm Matt Ellis alongside Nolan Zopydlowski. For the next few minutes, we'll present our top 5 sports stories of the week and discuss why they made the top 5. Did your top 5 make our list? Let's find out. At our number 5 spot, Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians is retiring from coaching and will be moving into a front office role. As a senior football consultant with the organization, Arians won 31-18 in 3 seasons with Tampa Bay, making this the highest winning percentage out of any Buccaneers coach in team history. He also led them to the Super Bowl in 2020 and now Super Bowl 55. Now Tampa Bay defensive coordinator Todd Bowles will be replacing Arians. So how do you see this coaching change affecting Tom Brady as well as the rest of the offense, and how do you think Brady will work with Bowles' new conservative play style?
Well, look, Matt, as soon as Tom Brady came out of retirement and came back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were instantly my favorite, at least for the NFC, and I think a lot of people's favorites. And look, the offense will run through him. Tom Brady played for years under a defensive-minded Bill Belichick, and he did just fine. I think Tom Brady is obviously very well-versed enough and is a fantastic quarterback, the best we've ever seen. So he'll be fine. I really don't see this change really having any impact on the Buccaneers. Personally, I think Bruce Arians kind of got carried a little bit in general by Brady, and his success was essentially, going to be kind of hindered if Brady didn't come back. So the coaching change I don't think is that big of a deal. I think Todd Bowles will be sufficient as the new Buccaneers head coach. At our number 4 sports story of the week, in his 9th season with the Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo is now Milwaukee's all-time leading scorer as he passes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar after Thursday's 120-119 comeback victory over the Brooklyn Nets. Beyond being Milwaukee's all-time leading scorer, the Greek Freak ranks 1st in blocks and triple-doubles, 2nd in assists and rebounds, and 5th in steals. With only 9 seasons in the league, is Giannis already the greatest Buck of all time? And Matt, do you think he's well on his way to winning his 3rd MVP title this season?
So in terms of him being the Milwaukee Buck GOAT, I guess, I think we got to hold off just a little bit. Giannis is definitely on his way to maybe becoming Milwaukee's greatest player of all time, but Kareem definitely deserves his respect as well, but Giannis is on his way. Then in terms of the MVP race, yeah, Giannis is and should be looked at as the number 1 guy and the front runner in the MVP race. You look at what he's done so far with Milwaukee, it's kind of on par with the Sixers and specifically Joel Embiid. It's pretty much Embiid and Giannis. Now, Giannis is one of the better scorers in the league, and Embiid is as well. So it's definitely a close race just in terms of stats. Points are pretty even, rebounds are pretty even between Giannis and Embiid. But as of now, I think I will give it to Giannis. Embiid is great as an offensive player, but so is Giannis. So those two are right in it for the MVP. At our number 3 spot, there's a time where it felt like opening day might not come this season. But MLB fans can rejoice as baseball is just around the corner. The first games will be held on April 7th as the Red Sox and Yankees will resume their rivalry to kick off the 2022 season. With just 2 days before opening season, what are your predictions for this upcoming season? And do you think any teams will surprise people this year?
So looking at the MLB season this year, I'm going to start off with the hometown favorite, the Milwaukee Brewers. I think that the Brewers are the favorites to win the NL Central. And honestly, I'm hoping, as a fan at least, to see a little more postseason success than we've seen in the past. We've seen them have really great regular seasons, but last year was the offense that hindered them. A couple years ago was the pitching. So hopefully they kind of have everything up to par and are able to maybe make a little run in the NL. And as far as other teams go, look, I think some teams that'll take a step back include the Astros, who lost a lot in the offseason. I also think the Mets, without Jacob deGrom to start the year, they're going to be not as good as people think they're going to be. I see people rank him very high, some as high as top 5 in the power rankings, and I just don't see that happening early on. And, as far as like MVP favorites go, I think the NL, you could take a look at a number of Dodgers like Freddie Freeman or Mookie Betts, but I just think there's too much going on there in the offense. I would take a look at somebody like Juan Soto or Bryce Harper, I think would be a better favorite. And for the AL, I really like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. from the Blue Jays last year. I believe he was runner-up or 3rd place. He was right in the conversation. And I think he's going to take another step forward, and I think we're going to see him in a very good spot for the AL MVP.
We have our thoughts on the new overtime rule coming up on the list. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Jitters Coffee House. Located on the first floor of the Wells Towers, Jitters is a student-run coffee lounge and offers a variety of coffee and ice cream-based drinks and is home to many entertaining programs, including live music, gamer trivia nights, and other performances. Coordinate your activity by emailing jitters@uww.edu. Jitters is completely run by volunteers who can earn service hours and even receive a free drink during their shift. Stop in tonight at Jitters Coffee House, where fun events and community come together.
Welcome to the University Bookstore. The University Bookstore provides students with the opportunity to purchase apparel, gift items, textbooks, snacks, supplies, and other necessities right here on campus. The bookstore is also home to textbook rental, where you can find many of your required textbooks. Our friendly staff always goes the extra mile to provide customers with a quick and pleasant experience. Visit the bookstore today to find great deals on everything you need to succeed as a Warhawk.
The UC can get you connected to all your basic needs. Grab a coffee and a meal. Study by the fireplace. Bowl, play, and relax when you want to break from homework. The UC has much more to offer to Whitewater students. Go to the UC's website to see what's going on this week.
Welcome back to The List on UWW-TV. Let's continue the countdown to this week's top 2 sports stories. At our number 2 spot, NFL owners approved a modified overtime rule that will guarantee both teams in possession during the postseason. Previously, a defensive score or touchdown on the opening possession would end overtime before it reached true sudden death. Now, if a team wins the coin toss and scores a touchdown, the opposition will have a chance to match. The Dolphins, Bengals, and Vikings were the only 3 teams to vote against it. This has been very controversial, Matt. What are your thoughts on the overtime rule change, and do you think we will see more changes in the NFL going forward?
Well, it's definitely hard to get any rule changed or removed or anything with the NFL, so this is just kind of a win for anybody that wanted it changed, especially with all the teams out there who may have thought they weren't given a fair shot. Now, I definitely do think this is a step in the right direction for the NFL as a whole, and then for improving the overtime. I think football is a sport that doesn't adhere very well to an overtime. In fact, I think basketball might be one of the only main sports that is okay with actually having a true overtime. So giving both teams an offensive possession is definitely something that the NFL should do, and obviously they did, so it's the right move for the NFL, and it's going to impact a lot of teams in the postseason. The postseason will get better if we are going into overtime. So in terms of that, yes, the NFL did a very good job. But with that, we're going to be moving on to our last sports story of the week. So at our number 1 spot, South Carolina wins the women's basketball championship in a 64-49 victory over UConn. On the very first possession of the game, South Carolina took the lead and they never let it go. Now in the men's basketball championship, the Kansas Jayhawks defeated North Carolina and the Tar Heels in a 72-69 win, claiming the 4th men's title in Kansas history and its first title since 2008. The men's title game delivered one that was for the ages as Kansas rallied from a 16-point deficit, mounting the largest comeback in title game history. So what was the biggest difference in the 2 halves for Kansas, and were you surprised by either of these outcomes?
Well, look, I wasn't really surprised with the women's outcome to start off the bat. South Carolina was a very dominant team, and look, UConn was obviously very good too, getting to the national championship, but really it was only one player for UConn compared to where South Carolina had really been dominant all season. I think they're starting to become a little bit of a dynasty in women's basketball. As for the men's championship game, that game was really hard to watch as someone who had Kansas winning their bracket. But North Carolina started out really good. I thought they did fantastic on the glass. They were getting tons of offensive rebounds, which was to be expected. But Baycott wasn't 100% healthy, and I think in reality it was kind of about stamina. Kansas came out in the second half, absolutely fired up. McCormick hit some huge shots down the stretch, as did Remy Martin. He hit some outstanding three-pointers. And really, it was just Kansas's half. They just pushed North Carolina, and North Carolina also suffered a couple injuries. I mean, we saw Caleb Love go down. He was able to stay in the game. But Baycott, he unfortunately rolled his ankle, and he wasn't able to return, and that was big down the stretch. So I think Kansas's hustle and stamina ultimately won them that championship.
And that will do it for this edition of The List. We'll be back next week on UWW-TV to talk up the sports headlines. For Nolan Zopydlowski, I'm Matt Ellis. See you next week.